What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've managed to drag myself away from Lost Ark on the PC to do another one in my featured Commander decks video. Today's video is going to be about Vendilion Clique. It's my tribal wizard commander that I've played at a tournament and I won the tournament with. Before we get started, I'd like to recommend various other magic things I found on the internet or on YouTube. So, first piece of thing I'd like to recommend is a piece of software. It's called moxfield. It's a website, an app that enables you to keep track of your decks. It enables you to log all your decks and able to keep track of what's in your various decks. And it's also free to use. So I'd recommend that. I'd link it in the description below. I also recommend it's another YouTube channel. It's called the Nitpicking Nerds. It's also about Commander, and it generally has daily videos daily. And now back to today's featured presentation. So my general is Vendilion Clique, if you can see it there. So this is the foil one from Horizon Masters, MM2. So it's basically a 3 mana, 3/1 for 1 of blue, flash fly. When the clique enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land from it. If you do that, player reveals the chosen card, put it on the bottom, and you draw a card. So it's basically, it enables you to get free information about people's hands. And you can see if they're playing and what they're playing, and enables you to know when to keep mana open. You can also use it on yourself to filter your cards to see if you have got a card that you think will be useless in the matchup. You can basically just use it to put it on the bottom and draw another card. It also combines with an enchantment called Equilibrium, so you never have to pay the commander tax on it. But it's a good card. It's banned on 1-in-1, but who plays 1-on-1 anyway? Right, now we go to the creature section. Basically, they're divided into two sections. There's wizards and non-wizards. They're mostly all wizards, but the non-wizards are going to be first. So let's start off with Docent of Perfection. So this is basically closest to a wizard lord as you can get with the thing. So this is the pre-release copy. I don't remember if I played it at that pre-release or not. Anyway, so it's a 5/4 flyer for 3, a blue and a blue. And when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 blue human wizard token onto the battlefield. Then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform the Docent. It's not hard to do in this deck, and nearly everything's a wizard. It's also a bit like a Tower End that generates you tokens when you basically just cast spells. So it transforms into the final iteration. It basically keeps the flying, and it gives your wizards an anthem of all your wizards to control a +2/+1 and flying. Not a bad way to end the game if you basically don't have much else. You also it still generates the tokens. Yeah, so that's a nice little wizard anthem. Then we have Draining Welk. This is basically just a mana drain attached to a body. It's a 6 mana for a 1/1. But it gets bigger because it counters a spell when you play it. It has flash, and you put X +1/+1 counters where X is the spell's converted mana cost. So you can use it as a counter spell or a mana drain kind of effect, and it gets bigger. Yeah. Then we have Gile. So Gile is a 6/6 elemental incarnation. It can't be blocked by 3 or more creatures, so it's like Madcap skills plus, and it's basically if a spell or an ability you control will counter a spell, exile the spell and you may pay the card without paying its mana cost. And it also goes into the gets shuffled rather than into library rather than dying. Then we have one of the more recent creatures, so it's Torrential Gearhulk. So it's 6 mana for a 5/6 flash creature. So it's basically like a giant snapcaster mage, and it gets back. It may cast target instants from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, and it's a surprise blocker. Then we have Nezahul Primal Tide. This is a 7/7 dino from the Rivals of Ixalan set. It means you have you can gain no maximum hand size. It's whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card, and then discard 3 cards, exile him, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So if you don't mind discarding cards, it never dies. It draws you a lot of cards, and it's a dinosaur that is good outside a non-dinosaur based deck. Yeah. Now we move on to the creatures. So we start off with voidmage prodigy. So this was Kaibudai's invitational card. This is originally from they used to do player mailings when you got sent won a certain amount of token of tournaments. So basically for every 10 tournaments you participated in, you got a token or a lower card, and this is one of the higher ones. So this was for every like 20 or something you did. They sent various things like damnations and that at one point. So this was Kaibudai. He won the Magic Invitational, and I think he won Worlds as well. So this is the second version of the card. I think he complained he looked too large on one of them or something like that. Anyway, so it's basically is a morph creature, and it has blue, sack a wizard, counter target spell. There's another morph creature in the deck as well, so there's not... And there's other wizards that have morph, so it's not 100% they can work out what this card is. It's a good way to sacrifice various cheap wizards to counter. Then we have Arcanis. He's a 6-mana wizard. He's a 3/4 body. He has tap to Ancestral Recall, which is just draw 3 cards. And he can also be bounced if you have mana open to save him from a kill spell. Then you have Riptide Director. So this is signed by the artist. I saw it at one of the GPs or the bigger events, and I got it signed. It looks like a fishbone to me. Anyway, his ability is 2 blue, draw a card for each wizard you control. So he'll generally, if you have mana available at the end of your turn, or even if you have to do it as a sorcery, you can basically use it to draw lots of cards. It will generally draw you 3 or 4 cards, I would think, for 4, which is not bad. Continuing with the theme of wizards that draw a card, we have the Foot Courier. It's just basically a Merfolk Looter. It happens to be a wizard as well, which is relevant in this deck. It's just tap, draw a card, discard a card. Then we have more wizards. So it's Vensa, this form of the Vensa. He basically bounces spells or permanents to earn his hand, so you can use it to bounce either a problematic creature that's attacking you. If you don't have the appropriate counter spell, you can bounce the spell on the stack and try and get and it gives you another turn or so to draw the right answer. We have Beguiler of Wills. He taps to gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of creatures you control. He's a bit fragile. He's a 1/1 body, but you can always pitch him to Force of Will as well. Continuing with the thing that steals things, we've got Serve Temptation. This is from Lorwyn. It's a 4-mana 2/2 fly. It gains control of target creature as long as Serve Temptation remains in play. So this is most likely done on problematic creatures. They're generally done on people's commanders. As if you can protect it, you can kill other people with their commander, because your commander will generally not kill people very often because it's quite small. And then one of the more iconic wizards, so this is a Zami, Lady of Scrolls. It's basically tap a wizard you control, draw a card. This is more commonly seen as people's commander. It also combination, if you have that with something called Mind Over Matter, it generally wins you the game, because you can basically draw your entire deck, and you generally find a lab man or Thassa's Oracle and use it to win the game. If you want to play Mind Over Matter and you have one, you can use it, but it doesn't do that much outside this combo. We have another one of my more play cards in Commander. We've got Memnarch. This is the FTV copy. It basically is a large wizard. It's an artifact body. It enables you to steal artifacts, and if you have more mana, it enables you to turn things into artifacts and steal them. It does permanents as well. It's not just creatures, so it will enable you to get rid of or steal a... It's quite versatile. Now we have Glenelendra Archmage from Eveningtide. So it's a 4-mana 2/2 wizard. With blue, sacrifice counter target non-creature spell. It has persist, which means it will come back when it goes to the graveyard with a -1/-1 counter, enabling to do the same thing again, and you can repeat it. So you basically get 2 uses out of the card. It's also a fairy as well, if you have a fairy deck. I don't. Then we have Tefri. So that means you can basically have access to all your creatures at instant speed. And your opponents can only play at sorcery speed, so which means they won't be able to use counters and various other instants in your turn. Then we have one of the things that I found. I wasn't aware this card existed until I was going through the commander precons, and then I found this, and it's like, oh, this seems quite good deck for it. It's tap an untapped wizard you control to return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So if you have lots of wizards, even if you only get a go out of this, it's also quite large. It's a 5/6 body. It's also a giant as well, if you have a giant tribal deck. Now it's the other morph wizard. It's Keru Spell Snatcher. So this basically unmorphs at 6 mana to counter target spell. If the spell is countered this way, exile it, and you may cast the card without paying its mana cost, as long as it remains in exile. I like any of the foils that have a watermark on it as well. This is more recently seen in the, I believe it was in the morph precon. Then we have Supreme Inquisitor. It doesn't get on very. I don't get to activate it very often. It's basically a 5 mana 1/3 wizard. To tap 5 wizards to search target player's library for 5 cards and remove them from the game. Their libraries then shuffled, but it enables you to see through people's decks. If you know your play group, you know what cards they have and what you're more worried about, you can get rid of them. And there's not many ways to get them back from exile, bar like maybe Rift Sweeper that's in green that sees some play. And another wizard replica, so it's another artifact wizard from the old school Mirrodin. It's sacrifice counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. It's a cheap wizard. It's got a 1/3 body. It's not bad. It's easy enough to cast. Then we've got Snapcaster. So this is probably the best blue wizard. It's basically not really a wizard. You can see it as more as a spell with a 2/1 body attached. So it basically enters, you can get back target instant or sorcery, gains flashback until the end of the turn. So you can recur one of the cards in your graveyard. It's generally done on a blocker to get, and then to get back a spell as well. And I prefer this artwork to the other one. We have Fate Spinner. So this is basically a stacks piece, and it's one a blue and a blue, and your opponents basically have to choose a phase to skip at the beginning of upkeep. They either choose draw step, main phase, or combat phase. So it stops them doing all they want to do in a turn, and they basically have to think what they want to do. Then we have Patron Wizard. This wizard's a bit harder to cast because of the triple blue, but it turns all your untapped wizards into a Force Spike, which is basically tap a wizard, counter target spell, unless its controller pays 1. Then we have Lighthouse Chronologist. So this is basically a win condition. It enables you to set up so you can get basically 2 turns in succession. So it level up is a mechanic that's basically done as a sorcery speed. So this is, in the case of this card, it's blue put a level counter. When it gets to a certain level, it gets an additional benefits. In this case, this one doesn't do much, and it just gets slightly larger until it gets to the ultimate, which is basically on level 7 at the beginning of each end step. If it's not your turn, take an extra turn after this one. So you basically get a turn after everyone else in the playing sequence, and it's your turn. So if you get this and into a ball position, you probably just win. Then we have Magus of the Future. So this is play with the top card of your library revealed. You can play this card this turn. So it will basically dig down into your library. But the drawback is they can see what you have coming. This is from Future Sight as well. It's the same set as Tarmogoyf was in originally. So yeah, it's probably better for you than them seeing what you know what happened, because they have to play around knowing they can only see the top card of your library anyway. Then we have Tailwind. So this is basically, this is played in most decks that play blue. They're used in mostly the Izzet decks. So they basically, it's a 2/2 wizard for 2 a blue and a blue. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 2/2 blue drake with flying into play. So it basically generates you, you're doing your thing anyway, and it generates you blockers and various other things that we don't. So that's the creature based section. So we now will move on to the non-creatures. So let's start with the, we'll start with the counters. So we start with the counter spells. So we've got Mana Drain. I didn't have one of these until I opened it in the requisite Iconic Masters set. I mean, it's quite a lot now. It's like, there used to be a drawback when you got this card. So it used to be that mana burn used to exist, which basically, if you haven't been playing for that long, basically means if at the end of your turn, when the phase ends, and you've still got mana in your mana pool, you will take damage for all the excess mana you have, basically to represent a wizard being frazzled and burning out. So this is a blue and a blue counter target spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, add an equal amount of mana equal to the spell's countered cost into your mana pool. So it's basically like 3 mana. We were playing Commander Legends at the weekend, and someone opened one of these and they got it and played it and countered something that was around the 6 mana cost. So they basically got 6 mana free, and there's no drawback with the card now. It's just strictly better than counterspell. And we have Force of Will, which is probably the second, one of the most played blue counter spells. It's played in literally everything where it's legal. We go starting from Legacy, Vintage, and now of course it's in Commander. So this is the original printing from Alliances. It's also been reprinted in one of the other sets, but it's like, this is probably more expensive, but like, these are the version I had. I mean, I paid not a lot for it. I got it from a dealer for 6. He didn't know what it was worth. He only had the 1, but mine, I have a whole play set of them. And it's the iconic spell, so it's basically a free counter spell. It's basically, it's a 5 mana counter normal, or you can pay 1 life and remove a blue card from your hand from the game instead of paying it to cast the spell, cast a counter. Then we have slightly more situational counter. We've got Last Word. So this one is a 4 mana counter target spell, but it's basically uncountable. So it's basically for all those counter based walls. So this is basically the last say. Then we've got Disallow. So this is more like a slightly more versatile one. It's counter target spell, but it also does activated and triggered abilities, which enables you to do other things that you couldn't normally do. It's quite versatile. If not, it's basically like a cancel for the same cost of 1 a blue and a blue. Then we have from Modern Horizons, we have Archmagestom. So it's 3 mana. It's triple blue. It's normally counter target spell, but it also enables you to draw cards or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. I've used it to draw cards. This is a foil one. It's the only one I had. It's nice. I like it. And it's more variations on cancel. So this is counter target spell, Surveil 1, which is basically enables you to thin your deck. If you don't like the top card, you can put it into the graveyard. It also enables you to put the card into the graveyard for like things like Snapcaster Mage or Gear Hulk, and you'll be able to cast it eventually. Yep. Dissolve, which is another cancel variant. It's counter target spell, Scry 1. And it basically enables you to filter your deck. It basically looks at the top card of the library, decide if you don't want it. If you can put it on the bottom or back on the top if you do. Then we've got the free counter. We've got Pact of Negation. So any spell that has 0 in its mana cost and you think is normally quite good. This one has a drawback. You have to pay 3 blue at the beginning of your next upkeep if you don't lose the game, but like, it's a free counter spell. It's normally quite good. If you can't pay the upkeep, don't play it. Then we have one of the negates, so that's counter target non-creature spell. It's basically 1 of blue, so this is another one of the player mailings tokens. They used to do these. It's better than the cryptic command because people generally know what this one does. The cryptic is not. And we've got probably the best one, Fierce Guardianship. This is basically if you control your commander, you may cast this spell without paying the mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell, so it's like a negate, but if you control your commander, it's free. It's quite expensive at the moment. It's like $60. If you can still get it, if you see the precon which is in, I can't remember which one it's in. I recommend picking it up. This card's worth the money on its own. Then we have Desertion. So this is counter target spell. If an artifact or creature is countered this way, put the card onto the battlefield under your control instead. So it's you quite versatile. It enables you to steal people's various problematic things. There's certain commanders where it's really good on, and you can get so much value out of it. It's pretty good, and it was reprinted in one of the commander sets, so I think it's reasonably cheap. It does cost 5, however. Then we have Forbid. This was played in extended when I started. It's basically a counter spell at 1 blue and a blue. It's got buyback though, so you can discard 2 cards from your hand and then you basically get it back into your hand. So you can keep coming. Then we have the classic, the original counter spell. This is one from the M25. And it's just the classic spell. It's one of the best blue cards in the game. And this one's a pretty one. And we have Mystic Confluence. This is the version from the Commander set. You can also get it in foil. There's another printing. I don't have it at the moment. This has 3 modes. So it's kind of like a cryptic command. You can choose 3 modes. You can also use this multiple times. So you can do the same mode twice. So it's a counter target spell unless it's controlled pay 3, so it's effectively mana leak. Return target creature to its owner's hand, which is effectively unsummon, and draw a card. So at worst, you can use it as a tidings at instant speed, which is effectively 5 mana, draw 3, or it's like a mana leak on steroids. Very versatile. And then we have the classic council. This is basically 1 blue counter target spell. It's it's another player mailing one. Then we have Disdainful Stroke, which is basically it counters target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater, which is most of the cards in Commander. This is a F&M promo. Then we have Rewind, which is like a 4 mana counter target spell, untap 4 lands, so it's basically free as long as you can pay for it. So around the same period, there were a lot of free spells effectively, as long as you can pay for them. Then we have Cryptic Command. This is the player mailing one. I got 4 at the time. So it's basically, if you know what it does, let me know in the comments. I know what it does. Do you? Yeah. So now we go on to the other spells. So these are what I like to call there's various spells. They're split into 2 categories. We'll start with the stealing effects. Oh, no, so we'll actually do the other spells. The steal effects are in another category. Okay, so we'll start with the things. So your deck struggles. Once they've got various permanents on the table, you may struggle to deal with them. You need ways to deal with these. So this is the first way to deal with them. So this is all is dust. Each player sacks all coloured permanents he or she controls. So this will basically use to clear out various other problematic permanents you can't deal with. It will deal with a horde of creatures. It will deal with indestructible things. Planeswalkers, very versatile. You're not overly attached to your creatures, and if you know it's coming, you don't need to play out most of the cards. Then we have Mystical Tutor. So this is the version from Eternal Masters. This is basically a search your library for an instant or sorcery, reveal a card, shuffle your card library and put the card on top. So that all is very versatile. And tutors are very good because they enable you to get exactly the card you need for the situation. This one only costs a blue. It does go on top of your library, but if you can draw multiple cards, you'll be able to get it at the same time. And then the iconic Cyclonic Rift. Enough said about this card. Should it be legal in Commander? No. It's basically a single targeted bounce spell, or if you overload it, it will bounce all non-land permanents on the opponent's side of the table and normally win you the game. Can carry on with the bounce theme. We've got inundate. This is return all non-blue creatures to their owner's hand. So free for a cost of 3 blue and a blue at sorcery speed. So it will basically bounce most of your opponent's creatures. It won't bounce all of them, but you'll have a board. Then we've got bribery. So this is 3 blue. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put the card into play under your control. You know that your play group, you pick the person that has the best creatures. It's normally me if I'm playing, depending on what deck I'm playing. I've been briberied at least 3 times when I was playing the deck I featured the previous time on this series, the Shroom deck. I got briberied 3 times in one game. Anyway, you know what the thing does. Right, so now we'll move on to the enchantments. So we've got basically the first set of enchantments is mainly things that steal things, because you need other creatures to win. So this is take possession. It's a 5 and a 2 blue for a 7 mana enchantment. It basically means you control enchanted permanent. So this has split second though. That's why it costs 7. This is the original printing from Future Sight. Split second means as long as the spell is on the stack, players can't play spells or activated abilities that aren't mana abilities. So it basically reads as it's uncountable, and it basically, if you're committing 7 mana to it, it enables you to at least get some value out of it. Then we have the free one. It's treachery, which is the 5 mana steel enchanted creature, untap 5 lands. So this is from Urza's. Most of the cards from that block are busted, and this is one of the better ways to steal things. Then we have Imbolas's Clutches. So this is basically a 6 mana control enchanted permanent. It also makes it legendary. There's not a huge amount you can do. It's just 6 mana to steal something. You've got Liliana in the background, which is quite cool. Volition range. That's another variant on 6 mana steal. It's basically 6 mana steal a permanent, and if the enchanted permanent is tapped, untap it. Useful if you want something that's tapped and you want it to block. Then you have Control Magic, which is the classic control enchanted creature. I believe it was the original version of this kind of effect. Yeah, this is the version from Eternal Masters. I opened this. I was happy to have it. It's not worth a huge amount, but like, it's cool. I like the artwork. It's foil. Yep. Then there's another 2 enchantments in the deck. So various situations. So we've got 3 mana. The first one is Equilibrium, also from Urza's block. There's quite a lot of cards from Urza's block in this deck. This is basically an enchantment, which means you successfully cast a creature spell. You can pay 1 to return target creature to its owner's hand. It's basically very versatile because you mainly use it on your commander. It enables you to return the commander to your hand and basically play it again at an instant speed, and it enables you to never pay command attacks on your creature. So it enables you to do it multiple times in succession. You can also use it if people are attacking you with loads of creatures. It gets rid of tokens, and it's very versatile, and it's one of the better cards in the deck. So then we've got back to basics. This is basically a judgment call on your part and your play group. It's 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment, and it's non-basic lands don't untap during your untap step. So their owner's untap step, sorry. It's you can basically get more value out of this, as most of your lands are basics. You have a couple of lands that you don't mind losing, but like, it can shut certain decks down that aren't meant to deal with it. And this one's the foil copy in Ultimate Masters. And it's the only printing of this card in foil, unless it's in a secret layer, which I can't remember. Then we have 1 Planeswalker. We have Ugin the Spirit Dragon. This is the original printing of it from Fate Reforged. So this is an 8 mana thing. It's basically gets rid of small problematic creatures. It exiles permanents, and if you get to the ultimate, you're probably winning. Then last of the thing is the artifacts. So you've got the Ubiquitous, we've got Soul Ring. You don't really need that. Explaining that's in nearly every commander deck. Then we have Shackles, which is basically an 3 mana artifact. It's 2 and a colours tap. Gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of islands. You have a large amount of islands, so it enables you to steal the things. If you don't like what you've got, you can choose to untap the shackles and get something better at a later date. Neville's Disc. Your deck struggles to deal with generally enchantments and various other artifact-based strategies, and this is a nice way to get rid of them all once they hit the table. You have Oblivion Stone, more when you played in like Tron decks, but this is what you use. So this enables you to save. Basically, it's 5 mana, sacrifice, destroy non-land permanents, but you can also put fate counters on for 4, which means once you blow this up, you can save things that you're quite attached to. We have Perilous Vault, which is basically a nice way to exile various things. You're not particularly attached to most of your permanents. Yeah, these last two can be done at instant speed. And then you have Staff of Nin, which is basically like a Howling Mime with another ability on it. So it's 6 mana, you draw an extra card at the beginning of your upkeep. You also have Tap. The Staff of Nin deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and it's like a wizard staff, which I think is cool. Now we can move on to the lands. We will do the non-islands first. So we've got the most recent addition to the card is Otara, the Soaring City. I haven't used it recently, but I'm sure it's quite good. It's not the best one of the cycle, but I think it's far from the worst of the cycle. Anyway, this one is the alternate art one, which is cool. And we have Minimo, School at the Water's Edge. It's basically a legendary blue land from the original Kamigawa. These are getting expensive now. Anyway, so it basically reads, you can tap it for blue as normal, but you can play blue to untap target legendary permanent. There are quite a few legendary permanents in the deck. It's best with Arcanist to basically get double ancestral recall, but there are other wizards you can untap that have various effects. So Riptide Laboratory, I picked this up recently. It's basically another way to bounce your Vendilion Clique and not have to play the command attacks. It's basically done generally on Vendilion Clique to avoid paying command attacks. And at worst, it does tap for mana, but not blue. We have since you're playing a mono deck, you can play various basic colourless lands. So we've got Strip Mine, that's just sacrifice, destroy target land. Maze of If, it's just a way to get thick creatures, protect. Will stop you taking damage from various unblocked creatures. This is the original printing from the Dark. Reliquary Tower gives you no maximum hand size. You can draw a few cards. Deflection Tower, this is from M19. This is the foil one. It basically takes hexproof off your opponent's creatures and then enables you to target them. It's good if they have hexproof creature. We have Wasteland, so this is like a strip mine other than it blows up non-basics only, but you've got enough slots. You play mainly basic islands. Besiege, that's from Kamigawa as well. Fair few cards from Kamigawa in the thing. Coincidentally, I'm quite enjoying the new Kamigawa set. It's one of the best things they've done in quite a few years. So this basically comes in tapped, but when it untaps, you can pay 2 life to add 1 to your mana pool. If the mana is spent on an instance or sorcery, so that's most of the spells in the deck, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. Nikphos, this should probably be in most mono-based decks. I think it's getting a reprint as a Judge's promo. So it's basically 2 and tap, choose a colour, add to your mana pool an amount of that colour equal to devotion to that colour. So if you have a few things in play, and there are lots of doubles and triples anyway. So we've got the Wizard Land. We've got Cavern of Souls. So this one I've had for ages now. It's a foil copy from the original printing of it. It basically reads as you can add 1 mana of any mana into your mana pool. Spend the mana only to cast a creature of chosen type. So in this case, it's generally done on Wizard, and means that spell can't be countered. You have the Last of the Lands. We've got Opal Palace. So this basically means if you add 1 of your mana in your commander to the identity, if you spend the mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number +1/+1 counters equal to the number of times it's been cast for the command zone. It means you can get your commander bigger if you want to, and if you don't have the way to get it back for free without paying the commander tax, it will be generally quite bigger, because you generally cast it quite a few times anyway. And those are all the the non-basics. Now we've got the basics. There is quite a few basics. So we start. These are my favourite of the basics. This is one of my favourite art on an island. It said this is the Flower Land from Lorwyn. These are the foil copies. So this is nearly my favourite island. The other island being the Bowl Island. People know what a Bowl Island is. There's also this Flower Land. There's also there's a swamp in this cycle as well. The only two ones that were in the cycle. So there's another one of these. So total we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There's 24 islands. Now for the last bit, we've got the tokens that the deck makes, and also I like to have the tokens available so it's clear to people when I'm playing. Okay, so we have the drakes. They're made by Talrind, so it's just a 2/2 flyer. There are 2 of those. The wizards, they're made by the docent. I generally try to have 2 of each token, so basically I can have a dice on it, keeping track of how many there are. So I like to have 1 for the tap ones and 1 for the untapped ones. And those are all the tokens the deck makes, not a huge amount. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll update when I change anything major in the deck. I like to put all my decks on moxfield when I have time to do them. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you then. Bye.